Now welcome back to the stage Bob Cusack and our panelists. Elizabeth Gore, co-founder and president of Hello Alice. Jonathan Ortman, president of the Global Entrepreneurship Network. And Diane Rios Jasso, founder and CEO of Gourmet Pops. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks for panelists for joining us. Let's go down the line. I know Sarah just introduced you, but if you can kind of introduce yourself and also a little bit about your organization and kind of why you're here.
Sure. Well, howdy, y'all. I'm Elizabeth Gore. I'm the founder of Hello Alice. We are a financial technology, and I'm proud to say we serve 1.3 million small business owners in our country. Our mission is to provide equitable access to capital through credit, loans, grants, and we serve the new majority of business owners, women, people of color, our U.S. veterans. So it's an honor to be with y'all here and with our great partners.
Jonathan?
Great. Well, I'm Jonathan Ortmans, and I'm an entrepreneur and an economist, but as was mentioned, president and founder of the Global Entrepreneurship Network. And our mission at Gen has been for the last 15 years working on making it easier for anyone, anywhere to start or scale a company. And so as a result, a critical part of our mission is that as an economist, we all know that economies suffer when you leave anyone out. And as a result, we are very much focused on how do you remove barriers to those that struggle to be able to take that path, as well as unleash ideas and make it possible for those to see new opportunities and fresh ideas. We're very fortunate to operate globally. We're based here in Washington, D.C., but we operate in 200 countries. And we have 16 programs that we operate around the world. So we have a little bit of the privilege to see how these issues have been grappled with by other governments and other entrepreneurial ecosystems around the world. So that's a little bit about us.
Diana?
Hi, hola. My name is Diana Rios. I'm the founder and owner of Jarabe Gourmet Pops. We are a small Latina-owned small business that specializes in handcrafted Mexican ice pops known as paletas. So we pretty much manufacture ice cream. The business was established as a way to kind of bring tribute to my father, who used to sell paletas in the street corners of Los Angeles. And so we wanted to bring that story to light, bring paletas to mainstream, and that's what we're currently doing with our business.
And to that point, what were the biggest obstacles that you overcame starting your business?
Yeah, I can't really say this enough. I always get this question asked when I apply for a grant. And access to capital is definitely the #1 challenge that we're currently facing as a small business, aside from sorts of challenges such as supply chain, high interest rates, margins are being squeezed. And so as a small business owner where we're having to compete with larger companies, one of the biggest challenges is definitely having access to capital. Access to capital gives me two things. One, to allow me to grow my business, but it also allows me to be competitive in the marketplace. And so when we originally launched our business, which was in 2018, we registered our business in 2018, but we didn't actually officially launch our business until 2021. And the reason why we weren't able to do that is because there's the R&D component to it, but then the working capital. My partner and I saved $30,000, which meant saving 50% of our salary so we can start our business, and that just gave us enough to pay for a little push cart, ice cream push cart, a couple equipment, and just supplies. And we realized that was not enough. It was just enough to keep the lights on.
Just a quick follow-up. How was COVID? I mean, how did you overcome that? How did that affect your business?
It didn't, actually, we launched in 2021, so we were still in lockdown.
Right.
We had to pivot. We originally wanted to start a brick and mortar. We realized that was going to cost, it was going to be expensive, and so we decided to actually bring it back home and kind of old school Mexican way, push a push cart to the farmers markets, and so that's how we've been raising capital on our own, just bootstrapping our way.
Elizabeth, tell us about the business health score and what the inspiration for that was.
Sure.
Fascinating idea.
Thank you. So at Hello Alice, we've distributed millions and millions of dollars in capital to small business owners. And that was always our objective, was equitable access to capital. What we realized is, I'm a good example. I'm a founder of this business. I was an animal science major. I was not a business major. And so how do you actually manage the financial health of your business is so critical, particularly COVID and now that finances are tighter and it's very hard to get a loan. We talked about credit scores earlier with Mark Madrid. So the financial health and vitality of your business is critical. So very much like the stories you've heard today, most of us are doing our books or our financial health at night or in the mornings and when we're not selling to our customers. So at Hello Alice, we built almost a gamified approach to your financial health. So it's called the Business Health Score. And so we wanted we know traditional credit scores are important, but we wanted to look at the whole of your business. What is your cash flow? What is your credit? What is your employee makeup? And so in about 6 minutes, we can tell you the financial health of your business in a 0 to 100 score. Most importantly, we then help small business owners know how to improve that score. It might be separating your personal and your business credit. It might be applying for a small business loan. We have an incredible partnership with Gen Global and Wells Fargo and MasterCard right now where we are helping you get secured credit, for example. And maybe we can put up a grant to help you with that collateral you need to do that. The way a small business owner is going to know that is through that business health score. So we've worked very hard with Jen and Wells and MasterCard to understand what is that data infrastructure we need to do that, what self-reported data and third-party data we need to integrate. And our macro objective is to unlock, maybe with $70 million in grants, we can do $1 billion in credit. There's a $40 billion gap in the BIPOC community alone for those who've applied and been declined business credit. Wow. So our goal is really as the four of us to really crack that open, and it's a great business opportunity.
But there wasn't another version of business health score before? I mean, it sounds like a kind of basic concept.
It does, and you know, entrepreneurship, a lot of people are like, well, I could do that, but you didn't, right?
That's
so
very true.
That's what I love about entrepreneurs. And so this doesn't exist. It's the first of its kind. You know, I have to compliment Wells and Jen and MasterCard for taking a risk here, because it is, but I think it's going to unlock billions of dollars in credit.
Jonathan, let's get into the finances. Jen is managing the fund. What does that entail?
Well, essentially, we started with a fund, and the purpose of the fund is to provide small amounts of credit to those people who do have a poor credit score. They are not necessarily applying directly to say, I've got poor credit score, I need your help. But we're giving it behind the scenes to those that get through the business health score and are able to allow more people who are more of these, excellent number of, new small businesses that have started. We looked at these numbers, and it's, the story was strong during the pandemic. There's more and more people willing to take this kind of risk. But we're able to look, thanks to the great work, I want to give Hello Alice all the credit here, because they've done a super job at what I would describe is a little different, which is taking a look at how do you assess whether or not this is a good opportunity to invest in as a lender. How do you look at that in a little bit more of a holistic way? And you'll notice that the partners involved in this are all private sector. So we're conducting an experiment. We'd like to lead the public sector and to say, hey, look, we've done the testing. We can move a little bit more nimbly than you can and try to test this out. And so I think what's different here, which is really important to stress, is that we've got a little bit more of a sophisticated way of assessing whether or not this fund is going to be well invested. I will say, at Jen, one of the other contributions we make is that, we're all doing this, but we're especially focused on how do we set these people up for success. So it's not just, how do we help people who've really been dealt a bad deck of cards? That we all want to do, and that's the role of many of us in philanthropy in the public sector. But we want to take a smarter approach to this. We want to say, how do we add the technical assistance? How do we make sure that we've allowed them to understand their school? They understand the strengths and weaknesses of their business. As I often say to entrepreneurs and small businesses, do you really want to borrow the money? I mean, I might have said to you at the beginning, you're going to put that that $30,000 into those supplies and things. Let's take a really good look at this and work out, how do you feel about this? So I think the fund will essentially, we hope, be able to provide on an ongoing basis credit to people. And as they come out of having a poor credit score, they'll obviously, the resources that we put to providing security on a card that we provide them, we can put that to another entrepreneur behind them. So we're all motivated to see everybody succeed, because the more of them succeed, the more we can take that capital, thanks to the extraordinary generosity and leadership of Wells Fargo and others. I think this is, we want to put that to work for as many people who are in this difficult phase of the growth of their small business.
One note
Yeah, absolutely.
that I think is really critical. There is a perceived risk, particularly with women and people of color, of bad management or bad credit history. And a big part of it sometimes is lack of credit history. So women coming out of the care economy right now who've maybe through COVID are doing childcare, elder care, have not built credit. If you look at our US veterans coming home right now, they have not built credit over 10, even 15 years. So one of the things that I try and, look at the success of Diana, this perceived risk versus lack of credit history, I really want to delineate that, because I think that when you look at the whole business plan of a small business owner, that's what we're trying to do here. And sometimes it's just based on FICO alone, and some people have not had the opportunity generationally to build credit. So I just wanted to, I think that's an important nuancing here.
And to that point, Diana, when you made that decision that's what small business owners have to do. That you have they have a nest egg, and they're investing perhaps their life savings into their business. What was the key determinant in that? That's just that's one of the biggest decisions of your life.
I think so at this point. I think there was a couple indicators. We reached out to a couple major banks when we initially were looking into starting our business, and we were denied. Both major banks and CDFIs. CDFIs usually would come back and say, yeah, we can lend you this much money, but at this interest rate. And so for me, I'm not sure if it really made sense, not knowing, at this point, you're still in the idea concept of your business. You're really not knowing how your business is going to do. You don't really know those projected revenues.
Did the bank help you understand why?
No, they just sent a letter.
No good, right, okay.
They just sent a letter saying, sorry, you've been denied. And so I think that was kind of our decision. That's when we kind of pivoted and said, hey, you know what? We need to figure it out. And we decide to just, let's save up and let's just bootstrap it. And that's how we decided to start the business.
Let me add a point, if I can, onto that. I think if you look at the 2023 Kauffman Foundation data, one of the important reasons that we're discovering is about this getting turned down by banks is that where you've got about half of the applicants getting turned down, if you're an average, for example, if a white male, for example, you're seeing 70 to 85% of, for example, Latinx or particularly Black Americans or Americans of color getting turned down. And of course, we know some of that's due to discrimination. We know that some of that, to echo Elizabeth's point, is just due to the fact they just don't have that credit history. And so I think a lot of this is for us to be able to adjust that, because what the credit score also does is help us turn around and say, let's remove those other factors and make sure that that decision is being made upon the potential of that small business opportunity.
Regarding as far as the economy right now, everyone's trying to make sense of it. As I mentioned to Mark earlier, that there's a record number of small business applications. Really, this is for any and all of you. What are you seeing in the data that you have, some people who are feeling sour about the economy, but then a lot of people want to start their own business now coming out of COVID, which obviously devastated the small business community?
You know, we were in Baltimore last night with several hundred small businesses, and we're data nerds at Hello Alice, and we did a survey before we got here. 98% of the respondents were optimistic about their small
98.
business. Yes, 98%. And I say that because Mark mentioned earlier, it's so important to disaggregate corporate from small business. We are seeing receipts up for small business vendors, which is really exciting. I don't think it correlates with the squeeze and the difficulty right now of getting loans. And so I think there is a disconnect there. And so, and if you look at folks like Diana and all the small business owners we were last night, the hustle is there, the heart is there, the excitement. Also, small business owners are spending, 97% of them are spending more on software than they ever have in the past, which shows a level of sophistication. It shows a level of the ability to understand different lines of business, different marketing streams. So, you know, COVID was really tough, but those who made it through and those that are starting now, I just think have a different level of acumen that's really going to be positive for this economy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add to that. I mean, also, if you look at Hello Alice data, and I just want to stress, you know, that's the joy of a nonprofit organization like us partnering with Hello Alice, is that they do great data, and of course, they're a fantastic platform, and if you don't know the Hello Alice platform, you should be on it. But the point is that data also told us during the pandemic that we experienced similar levels of optimism from small businesses about, you know, how they viewed the future. And yes, there's always going to be headwinds for some kinds of businesses and tailwinds, and those are going to change. Obviously, when you have a lockdown, you know, and you're a restaurant, you know, you're going to go through significant, you know, problems compared to somebody else that's running a Zoom service, you know.
Right.
So I think there's always going to be the swings and roundabouts. But the biggest thing for me is that we're dealing with people who are dreamers, builders, risk takers. You know, I mean, to be someone like you have to have a little bit of grit and courage. And so, you know, I think, you know, the great, you know, joy we get from doing the work we do is we're typically surrounded by the people who actually have that pretty optimistic. I mean, they do see the glass half full. But I'm super optimistic about the economy. Look, I mean, I think that there are tons of fresh opportunities. There is a whole new culture in every American that says, I don't have to wake up and get a job where I automatically go to work 9 to 5 at a third-party location. So that's opened up a lot of people saying, well, just what if? Just maybe at some point I might do this, which is why I think you're seeing a lot of those new small businesses getting registered.
Sure.
Because people realize, hey, guess what? I can also be a caregiver. I can also do these other things, but I can run my business. So, no, but our data has told us actually the overall, and this may be a controversial statement, that the pandemic has actually been a big fuel and driver of the entrepreneurial capacity of this economy, because it's really opened up a lot more people who are willing to take risk. And it's got more people like those of us here today that are trying to remove barriers such as barriers people face in getting credit to build and grow the company.
That's an interesting point. So, but just the mentality, and obviously this is anecdotal, but you've talked to, I'm sure, a bunch of small business owners, that even though the pandemic was devastating to so many people, to our children and to businesses,
Yes.
is that it also, from what I think you're saying, is it got people to stop and think about their lives?
Absolutely, but it also opened up new paths that people could take that they didn't previously think were possible. And I think a lot of that's technology. You know, and our partnership with Hello Alice, for example, during the pandemic, I mean, I think we collectively issued more than $16 million in grants to small businesses that we felt we just needed that extra hand. So I'm not saying it wasn't tough.
Right.
I'm just saying that looking at it from a sort of macroeconomic perspective, I think you've seen a massive acceleration in the mental capacity and in the technical capacity of American people to do what they do well, which is to be pioneering, take risks, build things, and, you know, improve their own lives and that of those around them.
Diana, what are your thoughts? Are you bullish on the future?
Yeah, I'm generally optimistic. I'm optimistic about my business. I'm optimistic about the future. I'm not sure if I'm that optimistic about maybe the business or banking environment, but I know that if I continue on the route that I'm going, I know that I will grow my business.
And you used to work on Capitol Hill.
I did.
If you had a magic wand and Congress could do something, what would you like them to do?
I would love to be able to see some direct lending from the Small Business Administration.
Okay.
I would also like to see maybe some redefinition on the definition of small business. Currently, right now, we're lumped into these large definitions. I think Mark Madrid kind of mentioned on it that we should be separating depending on those kind of business ecosystems. So I think that would allow for allocations for smaller businesses like mine that have particular needs different from those of 320 employees. So I think those are the two things I would do.
Well, that's great. Well, we end on an upbeat note. Please thank our panelists for joining us this morning.